Selamat Starbe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our regular session with Pamela. Pamela, welcome.
Hello.
Pamela is going to talk about teaching listening skills. Pamela, so you can share your screen.
Okay.
And we can start.
Okay. So I've talked about some of these things before, but we'll speak specifically about listening. These are just some ideas. Again, there's a lot of different ideas out there. So I'll explain some points to always keep in mind when creating a listening lesson. And then some ideas, but just as long as you keep the main points in mind, you can come up with your own things. So we'll talk about some of these things as far as activities are concerned. So using songs, using videos, so you have the visual as well. There's an exercise called Correct the Mistakes, which you can use any kind of listening material for. And then running dictation is one particular exercise that is, it's the students listening to each other. So it's a little bit different from the other things that are challenging them to hear a variety of voices and registers and varieties and accents, but it's a fun thing that they have to really listen to each other, and it's a good speaking exercise because they have to be careful of their pronunciation as well. So I'll get into those a little bit, but first we're going to talk about what a listening lesson looks like. So remember that when we are creating our lesson plans, we have clear objectives that we want to get through. We want to get those SMART goals, at least 2 objectives. And to hit those objectives, we have a task, right? So we always have a task before we listen to something. Also think about in your first language, just in life, whenever you're going to listen to something, you have a specific task you're listening for. You never just listen and then see what the thing is about. So a lot of times when I've observed classes or when I was in training, a big mistake that I see teachers fall into is that they give an exercise without a clear task before they present the listening material. So we never want to just have it be a general thing where you say, okay, listen to this and tell me what it's about afterwards. You have to give specific questions. So you want to have an extensive and intensive exercise. So you start with the extensive and then you go to the intensive. So what does that mean? Gist versus detail. So an extensive or gist would be something general, a specific question about the general topic of the listening exercise. So if it was about the news, you would ask a question that would say, you know, what are they, who's talking here? What are the, what countries are involved? Something about what a problem is, what problem are they discussing, and what solution are they proposing? So something that has to do with, oh, what is this listening about? Or if it's in a movie that's a comedy movie, what is the conflict? So something kind of general. And then you do again, and you have something, you have more specific questions. What is the name of the person? In what year are they planning this next trip that they're going on to? Where are they going in the trip? Who are they seeing? So all of like the WH questions, specific things that have to do with numbers, years, dates, amount of money, those kinds of things will be the questions that you ask specifically about something after they've already listened to it and you've discussed it. Be sure that when you choose the topic, it's relevant and interesting. So we know relevant is part of our SMART goals, right? It's their R. It's really important. Relevant, really important to be relevant. Add that to your R, really. And interesting to them. So I know that we are restricted to the topics that are in our books, but if you can find something that is linked to the topic in the chapter, something that the students are interested in, or a theme that is related, that gives a little bit more detail about that, or something that links it to the present day, something that makes it very immediate to them, so that they will be thinking about, oh, this is what's happening right now. Even though the topic is talking about something that happened 5 years ago, let's talk about what is happening with your country, or with America, or with Korea. I know they love K-pop, so maybe bringing Korea into whatever you're talking about might be interesting to your students if they are at that age and those fans. So finding something that is really interesting, because beyond the question you give them, you want them to have that inner motivation to listen and get the information. So it's always more interesting to, and it's more engaging, and you learn more to have what you are working on in class be something that you are personally interested in learning about, not just I'm interested in getting a good grade, or I'm interested in pleasing the teacher today. So for example, when I was studying Kyrgyz in my first 3 months of training in Kyrgyzstan, everything we learned in class was very relevant to what our lives were like. How to get to Bishkek, how to ask our family for the kind of foods we like, how to get directions in the village, how to talk about the objects in our bedrooms. Everything was really useful for us. We were interested in learning these things, and we were able to apply them immediately. So really work on having the topic and theme of what you are finding to use as as a listening material, make it very interesting to them, and let them know how it will be useful. You want to, because listening is a receptive skill, you want to link it to a productive assignment. So remember, we always want to end class with our production stage, and we want to have, even if you don't get to it at the end of class, you can have it for homework, but you definitely want to get them using those things and making something of their own, creating their own individual sentences, either with speaking or writing. So make sure that you link that to an assignment after you've done the listening. You don't ever want to just do that. We'll talk a little bit about some examples for that. It's really important to use a combination of authentic materials and educational materials. So authentic materials, as we discussed a little bit before, are things that are meant for native speakers to consume and enjoy, or to inform them. So think about news, radio, or podcasts, songs, TV shows, movies, anything with sound that's going to be made for people who are native speakers of English. So those are great to use. You can adapt them for any level. Educational materials are ones that are specifically created to help speakers of a different language learn English. So the reason that you want to use both is that you want to bring them into the real world of actually using and actually like interacting with the English language in the way that native speakers use it. It builds their confidence. They love being able to consume something that they know that native speakers do. It makes you feel like you are, you know, at a certain level of the language. Also because it's more natural, and we're always promoting natural speech, natural writing. We don't ever want anything to come off too much like too formal, as in the way that it is presented in textbooks. We want it to come off like you are having a conversation with somebody in English. So authentic materials are great to use and to learn from. And they also, there's so many different ones that are, that you'll find a variety of things that your students will be interested in, first of all. And also it's great to challenge with different accents, different voices, male and female, different ages, varieties of the language, dialects, all of those things, which you want to expose them to, so you can find that. I used to use TV shows that had Australian accents and accents from India and England, different parts of England, Japan, you know, anything that will challenge them to hear English and not just hear just Americans or just British or just you as a teacher. So that's why bringing in materials is really important, because if it's like okay, I'll give you another example from my history of studying. When I was studying Chinese 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet, YouTube, and, you know, immediate podcasts and all these things. And we had movies, but I had to go rent them, and it was expensive. The movies that we have at our access, you know, at our fingertips right now. And I really spent a lot of time just listening to my Chinese teacher's voice. And that was it. And I started to, when I was given an assignment or when I was talking with somebody else who was a Chinese speaker, I would actually think about, oh, how would my teacher say this? Or how would I answer to my teacher? Because that's the only thing that I was really comfortable with. So you want to make sure that you don't have students like that are really dependent upon you, that you expose them to all those different kinds of voices, and make sure that their ears are tuned to that and they don't hear too much of you. They should hear the least of you. Remember, teacher talk time should be low. You also do want to have educational materials because, first off, it makes your life a little easier. So if you use the sound files that come with the textbook, the lesson plan is there for you. They'll have or they should, in a lot of the newer texts, they do have this, especially the ones from, I know we have some from Oxford Press. Those are very good. They'll have, along with the text, they'll give you the extensive and intensive questions. So you just have to be really familiar with that. And then you have to just deliver the lesson as it's given, right? So definitely know it before you give the lesson, but that's pretty much what you have to do. So it's a little bit less of the labor-intensive preparation. You also, it will be at their level. You won't have to adapt anything, or you shouldn't anyway. If the textbook is right for the level you're teaching, you should just be able to pre-teach the words that are in the exercise. You should be able to give the questions, play the audio, follow up with that, and as it's going. So you shouldn't have to adapt anything as in the way that you would have to if you found some audio on YouTube or clips from movies or something, or a song. And as I mentioned, it's important to, when you're doing that, especially if you're looking for authentic, expose them to different voices, accents, varieties, ages. So also, I just want to add to that, though, when your class is at a lower level, it's okay to stick with either like the British variety or the American variety, just to get them used to what things are. When I was teaching, beginners, absolute beginners, we'd stick with one variety of English. But then as I started to teach like the very high level of like pre-medical students in universities, the listening had a lot of different accents. The listenings were longer. So the educational audios that went along with the textbook were pretty good with integrating those challenges in according to level and what they needed. So yeah, but I think maybe with the accents, something fun like yeah, clips of TV shows, movies, or songs or something to just kind of expose them to being used to hearing that. But as far as like really using and getting them used to in a more of a formal way, like stick with one variety if they are very low level or very new to studying English. Okay, so we'll get to some of the activities. These again are just some ideas. So these have been ones that I've gone to again and again that I found a lot of fun, and the students have too. You can do the whole class this and then give them an extensive, give them a production assignment for homework. So the thing that you want to do when you introduce a new topic or you introduce kind of an activity for a skill like this is you want to warm them up, of course. So introducing the topic, do it with predictions. So predictions are a lot of fun with songs. So what you do is you will put the name of the person who made the song or the band, and the title of the song. And so it's very important to choose something you don't think they already are very familiar with, right? So it could be something, if anybody wants ideas about kind of more obscure, like country music is great. I think country music is really great to use for these kinds of things because it often has stories. They sing very clearly. There's no like muddling in pronunciation. So if you put the name of the artist and then the song, and then ask them what they think the song's going to be about. So ask them, what kind of music do you think this is? What do you think? Do you think it's going to be a happy song? Do you think it's going to be a sad song? Do you think it's going to be slow or fast? Do you think this person, this name is a man or a woman? So you might want to also choose a name that's not very common in Kyrgyzstan or not very familiar. Maybe they can guess, they'll have a harder time guessing. And have them guess what country it's from. And guess what the song is about. Do you think it's a love song? Do you think it's a protest song? Do you think it's about heartbreak if it's a love song? Do you think it's about the love of somebody's country or something specific that happened? Is it about a mystery? There are some songs that are mysteries, and at the end you get the answer, right? So have them predict all those things and then write on the board. And then their first assignment can be to listen and hear if their predictions were true. So, or you can, what would be really fun is to have like two groups in class, and then they each have to, each group has to agree on voting for one aspect of the song. So group A and group B. Group A believes that it's a fast song, it's by a man, it's happy, and it's about falling in love, and it's from America. And so they put those predictions on their side. And then the other one says, no, I think it's by a woman. It's sad. It's slow. It's about heartbreak. It's from England. And then they put their predictions on the other side. And then when you listen, you can see how many predictions were true, were guessed correctly from one group to the other. So it can be like a competition. You have your motivation to listen and pay attention right there already, because once you have competition, then the students want to win, right? That's even teachers, you know, everybody wants to win at every age. So that's always a fun one. So that can be your extensive exercise. Then for intensive, you can do comprehension questions that you have about specific things. Fill in the blank is a lot of fun. So that is, you have the lyrics on a page. It's a little bit difficult, I know, if you don't have access to printer or a lot of paper, but you can print half of what you need and then have 2 students share so they can work together. And you have some of the words are blanked out, so they have to listen for the correct words. And then once they do that, so you've had them listen, and then you've had them listen the first time to try to get the answers to these predictions, these questions they have from predictions, and then you listen for the blanks. When they are listening with the blanks, at that point it also becomes a reading lesson. So they are linking the sound of the words and what the words are with the written out lyrics, and you have the blanks in there, so they have to listen extra hard for those words, but they're also reading along. This is a really good thing also for pronunciation, because a lot of times when we don't link the exact word of what is written with how it sounds, pronunciation can get a little incorrect. So you might, and English is really bad for this, because a lot of words, maybe almost half, are not pronounced the way that they're written. It's not phonetic in that way. So anything that you're going to do that really makes the connection between the sound of the word and what they're reading is really important. So that's a good aspect of that too. And with some of the words, you can either pre-teach some words beforehand that will be that they'll find in the song lyrics. You can do this before and have it be part of the prediction. You could say, knowing these new 7 words that are in the song, can this give you a little bit more of a clue about what the song is about? Or you can do it after they do that extensive exercise, after they do the predictions, and before you give them the written, the reading of the lyrics, because then they might have some things that are a little bit more advanced or particular that they don't know immediately. You can also invite them to use the inductive method. So as we talked about I think it was a couple months ago now, inductive means that you are inviting them to use an educated guess about what a word means in context. So instead of, we want to do this as much as possible. Remember, we want to have it student-centered, and we want the students to use as much of their thinking skills and figuring out new word skills as possible. So circle a couple words in there and say, based on the context in this sentence, what do you think this word means? And then they can figure that out that way, and they can help each other. And what's great about this in a classroom is that you have all those brains working together. So maybe if something doesn't quite make sense to one student, another student can help out and explain why. So the why is always really important. is as important as getting the right answer, right? Because why are we doing this? We're doing it in order to help them develop those skills to be independent learners. Again, we don't want the kind of learner I was that felt like she was always dependent upon the teacher. We want to give them the skills that if they go out into the world and they are speaking English without us, can they figure out new things without knowing every single thing? Okay, using video. Using video is a lot of fun too, because you can use more of your visual cues to help with figuring out what is in an audio file or clip or whatever. So what we still want to use the predictions, but you're going to do it a little bit differently. You won't have something like you don't have to have a name of a movie. You just want to have them start guessing when they're watching it. So the first time, you're going to show it to them 3 times. The first time, you keep the sound off completely. And you don't tell them the name of the movie or the TV show or who the famous people are in it. And you just show a clip. Could be maybe 30 seconds to a minute long. It depends on what is happening in it. I used to show a girl and a boyfriend having a fight and getting angry and crying, and one of them leaves the apartment. So first you show it with no sound at all. And then you ask the prediction questions. You say, what do you think this fight is about? Who do you think these people are? Are they brother and sister? Are they best friends? Are they boyfriend, girlfriend? Are they husband, wife? Why are they fighting? What is the problem? Who is the one that has hurt feelings? Or who is the one that did something to the other one? You know, all of those things, just guessing. And again, you can do the teams and the predictions based on the teams and have it be a competition. You could write that on the board, and it keeps it in their mind as they're watching. The second time, you play it just with the sound. So you just have them talking to each other or yelling, being angry or whatever. So then that's when they are listening the hardest, remember, because they are really finding out if they are correct or if their team is correct. And then you talk about why, right? So you say, oh, this is, when did this happen? Or why do you think that this is, and sometimes they might get it wrong too, the second time, because they're just listening. People in movies and TV speak very fast. They speak with different accents, and they don't, again, it's not educational material. They're not trying to be clear for people who English is not their first language. They use a lot of slang, depending on what the show is. So that's why the third time we show it with the sound of them speaking English and with English subtitles. So hopefully, having already heard it once and being able to read along and listen to it the second time, they'll get the answers to the predictions. You can also give an extra extensive question for the third time after they have answered after the second time. So again, the same kind of thing. You can do pre-teaching, you can do inductive. What do you think this word means? So you could turn it into kind of like vocabulary comprehension questions. You can say, again, details about when did this fight happen? What date was it? Where are they? Anything that they're going to be saying, any kind of information that they are like you won't want to say like, well, does this happen during day or night? If you see that they're in a room with a window and there's daylight, that's not the listening that you're testing. That's testing if they can recognize what is in the film. And that's not English language, right? So, so anything that is, any information that is given through speech is what you want to have a comprehension question based on. Okay, and correct the mistakes. So this can be used for a song. So as I mentioned that when you have a fill in the blank and they listen for the correct word to put in the blank, for more advanced students, you can also put some words in the lyrics of the song that are incorrect words. It's not what the singer is singing. And then the students will have to really listen and read carefully at the same time to notice which words are incorrect and what is the correct one that goes there instead. So this is, again, only good for advanced students because they have to really be paying attention. And it's a lot of work for you as well, but it's a lot of fun and they love it. It's a very popular one. You don't have to use this for a song either. It can be used for a dialogue. It can be used for a speech that somebody is giving. So it could be a monologue from a movie. You know, some of these like dramatic movies, they have a really long monologue, or it doesn't have to be really long, but the person they are just talking themselves for a while, and you can, you know, put in some incorrect words of what they're saying and they have to listen and correct it. You could mix it with some of our Black history projects by having a famous speech by maybe a Dr. King or a Malcolm X or somebody. And they can learn something interesting at the same time as practicing their listening skills. So yes, this is, for advanced students. And then this really leads into a great discussion or research project, something. So yeah, we want to link it to a productive assignment. So it could be a discussion in class. If you get through these kinds of things kind of early in class, and then the topic, whatever it is, the ideas that you're talking about, can lead to discussion about that topic. So everybody is talking and listening to each other. You can really make sure to focus on correct pronunciation. If this is more of a listening lesson, if the whole lesson is kind of more geared towards that, you want to maybe not focus on grammar use as much as like drilling pronunciation, so that the focus is like they will be more clearly understood by having correct pronunciation when they're speaking, and having that be easier for the other students as well. It could be a writing project. So that's another productive skill you can have. A debate. You know how big of a fan I am of debates. I've mentioned it in almost all of these. I think I always come back to debates because it really is all the students' work, and it's very productive, and it is it really covers critical thinking and working with those WH questions. You can lead it to a more advanced listening assignment. You can give an assignment for homework, and you could it could be like a YouTube clip, or a link to a TV show, or it could be educational audio file. It could be something you make on your own. It could be a longer thing, like a research project, like maybe something they could do for English Week. It could be linked into longer themes that you're working on for weeks on end. So anything that you're going to do and introduce the theme in class and have them be listening to stuff, just make sure that you use that receptive skill in service of productive skills, and have the students really think about it and produce something that they have made and they have thought about that pushes their critical thinking skills. And they have to, it can't be something that they can copy, right? It has to be something that they prove that they understand, they've done the research, they've done the work, and they're producing it. There was another, I'm going to go back. There was another exercise that is a lot of fun that has them, again, have to speak clearly and listen to each other. This could also be considered a reading or a speaking exercise. But it's just a fun thing to do once in a while, depending on how large your class is too and what kind of space you have available to yourself. Running dictation. So you have a story outside that is taped to the wall in the hallway, and you have two different stories, and you have two groups of students. Depending on how many students you have, maybe you need 3. But I think the class size in Kyrgyzstan is okay, that you can just have 2 groups. And don't make the story too long, maybe a paragraph. And you have one student who is the designated scribe. That means they're the one that's writing. They're in the classroom, they stay there, and they are writing. And you have one student at a time go outside, read a sentence from the story, come back, memorize it, come back and tell the student to write it down. So what they have to do is read it, understand what is written there, memorize it, come back in and tell it and pronounce correctly to the student that's writing. The student that's writing has to listen and understand, and they have to spell correctly. So you want to have your best speller be the scribe on your team. So each student in the group should have one chance to go and memorize the sentence and then come back. The group that is done first with no mistakes or with fewer mistakes, maybe both groups have mistakes. So the one that is done first or has fewer mistakes will be the winner. So you want the outside story to be identical to the inside story. If that doesn't make sense, if there are questions about that, I can clarify afterwards. But okay, so that is the end of the presentation part. I'm open to questions and comments now. Listening.
Yes, thank you, Pamela. You have some questions here.
Yeah. Okay. Pros and cons of teaching listening skills. So you just have to do it. There's no cons to it. You have to teach listening skills. It's a really important thing. You want to make sure that they know how to listen and that they can be very effective at understanding what other people are speaking, because we don't just speak to one person. We don't just listen to one person. Also, we don't just read. Yeah, so we all know that the easiest skill in a foreign language is reading. And the second easiest is what? Listening, because they're receptive. They're not productive. It's harder to be accurate. Then the third most difficult is speaking, and the fourth most difficult is writing with accuracy. To be a really good writer, to have everything with no mistakes, that's the most difficult. So you definitely want to have all 4 of those skills be as even as possible. And so you want to teach listening skills. It's not a question of, well, there's too many cons, I'm not going to teach it. It's great to teach, and it's important to teach. Writing through listening. How can we spell accurate? So you won't improve writing through listening. What you will improve is understanding how things are pronounced by hearing the word and reading the word at the same time. Because sometimes we look at the word and we're reading it and we don't hear it pronounced, then we pronounce it incorrectly because it's not spelled as it's pronounced. So, and this even happens with native speakers. If you are just a big reader and you don't have a lot of conversations using specified vocabulary, you will just guess at how something is pronounced because you only read it in a book. What helps your spelling is reading. So as much as you can read, you will get used to seeing those words spelled in those in those in the correct way. Also, writing with a pen or pencil. So we want to have as many of our assignments and as much of our practice as possible to be written and not typed and not texted. Texting and typing out something does not burn into our brains the correct spelling as much as actually writing it out. So those are the ways to help spelling, but listening isn't really going to help you spell so much. It's just going to help you recognize correct pronunciation. But that's a good question. So for listening, yes, we only want to listen twice. Twice is the maximum, right? Because also think, so we have the extensive, the general one, and then the specific one. Also think about when we are actually interacting with the language, we don't really get 3 chances. Usually you can ask somebody to repeat something once and you're expected to kind of get it that time. And this again happens in our first language. I think I probably said what like 5 times to my parents today, right? You don't hear it the first time for whatever reason, or you don't understand what they're saying, and then they say it again. But also that should be the chance that they get is 2 times. 3 times is too much. Definitely not 4. What challenges can teachers face when teaching listening skills? Yeah, so if you have a class that is very multi-level, it can be harder because the students can be a little bit more lost if you go kind of quickly. And maybe not everybody is interested in the topic. I mean, there's always going to be challenges. Of course, technology can always fail you. But remember, you always want to have other voices as much as possible. So if technology fails and you just can't play the audio somehow or the video, I would say have a backup plan. Wait until that works and do like a reading lesson or something instead that day, or a grammar review or something. Because what you're really, the benefit you want of a listening lesson is going to be different voices other than yours. So it's not as beneficial to say, okay, the video's not working, or the player is not working, or the sound on my phone isn't working, so I'll just read it instead. They've heard your voice a lot, and they know, how you speak. You want to challenge them by hearing something else. So just keep that in mind too. And of course, you never know what kind of challenges will come up. But if you really pick things that are the right level, you introduce it correctly, you have them interested in answering those questions, it should go pretty smoothly. But I would say, yeah, probably having a multi-level class or choosing something that is out of the interest or out of the relevancy for the class. Okay, so there's a teacher who's providing a lecture and you are writing, noting the most necessary information. Oh, okay. So that's a different, yeah, so that's a particular skill. At that point, if they're just trying to listen and get the information they need from the lecture and write the necessary information in a hurry, they don't need to have accuracy at that point. I don't need accuracy at that point. When I'm taking notes on a lecture, I'm not writing in full sentences. I'm not thinking about the best way to say this in English. What that should be is just writing as much as they can. They can even, in this instance, if it's helpful for them, they can even write in their first language. That's okay. That's acceptable. Because what they want at that point is the information. You're not expected, that's not a writing exercise. We don't have writing listening exercises that are integrated that way. So I wouldn't worry about that. That's not something that we need. That's not a skill that anybody really has, is to write perfectly as they're listening to a lecture. Just get the important ideas that they need, either in English or Kyrgyz or Russian or whatever. And then if you want them to write something about the lecture, then they can go back, look at the important points and turn that into a report. Then that's important for them to have accuracy in when they have more time, correct grammar, correct spelling, correct vocabulary usage. But there's no need to be perfect when you are in a hurry and just taking notes, not even in your first language. Is it more difficult to understand and listen to music and speech? Yeah, it depends on the music. Yeah, it depends on the singer. So there are some singers that write in a very poetic way, and they just say things that are nonsense. It's all English words, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's more like artistic. And then there's some singers that sing about things that are clear, but they mumble a lot. Like they don't speak clearly, they don't sing clearly. And so that's very difficult. Then there are songs that are super clear, they pronounce really well. And I found some songs, like when I was studying Spanish, that the song is so clear. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so easy, so much easier than listening to the news or talking with somebody. They're so clear, they're repeating the song, they repeat the chorus. And also, if there's certain words that are repeated, that it gives you the context for the rest of the song, like amor or besos, that means love, and kisses. Oh, now I know it's a love song. Now I can listen for those other words that I maybe can expect from the song. So some songs can be a lot easier than others. Some speeches can be easier than some songs, or from other speeches too. So political speeches are really good because those are really meant to reach as many people in a country as possible, especially a very diverse country like America. If you listen to a presidential speech, if you listen to something like Barack Obama, he was very clear. He had a deep voice. He spoke slowly. Those are really good ones to use. I was first teaching when he was coming out, and that was always, to this day, recommended for that. And, you know, of course, have some idea. You have the task. What are they talking about? Where is he? What is he talking about? What is he saying about this or whatever? So that they have context for what they're listening for. But that speech is a lot clearer than some songs, and some songs are a lot clearer than other speeches. When listening to native speakers' conversation, the students have difficulties. How can they improve their listening? It just has to be at the right level, and you just have to keep scaffolding. So if you have a student who is the second year learning English, and you have 2 university students that are English native speakers, and they're talking, and somebody's trying to understand their conversation, it's not going to work because it's too high of a level for them. If you have a second year student and you have an educational material of a duo of students that are talking, who are their age, it's at their level, their understanding, then they will understand that more. A lot of times, the hardest thing to do as an educator is to choose the right kind of materials so that it's not at too high of a level for them. Yeah, itching to try the music method. It's wonderful. Yes, it's so much fun. Don't get anything after, then it's the wrong level. So the question, what can we do with students who still don't get anything from a listening passage after listening multiple times? Then you need to get something that's a little more to their level. So remember that we will understand something if we know 90% of the words that are being used. We have to know 90%. If we know 80%, we're not going to have enough information. And in a class situation, you don't want them to come in with 100%, because what are you teaching them? You want to have a little bit of something new. But if you've played it already twice and you've asked these specific questions, you've pre-taught words, and they still can't get it, then it's too high of a level. Those students need something that's a little lower level for them. Rap music, but some, yeah, just keep rap music out of out of education. It's a lot of slang. I mean, I would say that would be great for very, very high level, like university, that is one particular project that they're doing. But as far as learning the language, there's so much that is it's not the way that we use natural speech with each other, so it's not going to be as useful for them, and they won't really get a lot of that. And you know, that kind of stuff isn't really taught. You just kind of, as you go along and enjoy the music and you are a fan, you pick up those things. Like, I was never taught rap slang, but I know all of it because I've heard the songs. So that's really something to encourage your students to do on their own as they develop an interest in that. But yeah, like, rap is like way more than 10% slang. So it's going to, and it changes all the time. So every year there's new slang, there's new phrases, there's new words that mean something completely different. So you, yeah, it's better just to keep it out of the classroom for the levels that we're teaching. Yeah. Big and noticeable differences between speech and with words and literacy in books. Yes. So that's why we have to actively teach the 4 skills. We can't just teach one skill. We can't just teach reading. We can't just teach reading and writing and then expect everything else to follow. We have to actively make these different lessons that are grouped around particular skills. So we need to teach a lesson that is focused on speaking. We need to teach a lesson that is focused on writing, on listening, and on reading, so that we develop all of them, because there can be differences. Yeah, for sure. As Ernest asked about rap music, you know, that is a very, you know, this kind of slang music that is used a little bit in our speech, but a lot in the songs, like way more in the songs than you would actually use talking to somebody. That, you know, speech is more informal in certain situations than writing is. So we want to make sure that when we know the difference between how to write something appropriately and accurately, and when we're speaking, how to speak appropriately and accurately. So making sure you give equal focus on all 4 of those skills when you're teaching. You're welcome. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Or Manas, do you have questions?
Yes, it's my turn to give
yes.
questions. So sometimes while doing listening activities during the lesson, we use transcripts of the texts. What do you think? Is it helpful,
so,
effective?
If you do that with the assignment, like the fill in the blank or the correct the word, yes, that's beneficial, because you're still asking them to use their listening skill to apply to what is written down there. If you just give the transcript and tell them to listen and read, it's no longer a listening lesson, it's a reading lesson. Because reading, as we said, is so much easier than listening and understanding and getting it, because it's faster. You can take your time with reading. It's all there at once. So if you are going to use the transcript, make sure you do one of those things to make sure that they still have that motivation to listen. So they're listening for a missing word, or they're listening for the correct word to put in the sentence. Good question.
It's for practicing, yeah?
Yeah, for the assignment, yeah.
Okay. One more question. In your presentation, you mentioned like comprehension questions in music.
Yeah.
So what kind of questions should be comprehension? Is that just understanding the meaning of the words, or general meaning of the music?
It depends on what kind of song you choose. So you can just do it like comprehension of what the words mean. So for example, you can say, does this mean happy or sad, or is the person singing happy that this relationship ended? That could be a comprehension question about the topic or about the word. You can also, if you choose the kind of song that is a story, there's a lot of folk songs and a lot of country songs that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it really goes over a story arc. And those you can answer comprehension questions about what happens in the story, just like you would with a regular story that you read. Yeah, good question.
Okay, thank you very much. Dear participants, it was interesting discussion. Thank you, Pamela, for your presentation. So I think we have chosen already. Topic for the next lesson.
We're going to be doing stages of reading.
Yeah, stages of reading next week.
Yes.
At 11 Wednesday, yeah, Pamela?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, it's March 17 at 11. Okay, thank you very much. Those teachers who couldn't join us, they can review our session with Pamela on our Facebook page, and we have also a YouTube channel of American Space Kyrgyzstan. You can find us on YouTube also. So thank you very much, Pamela. Have a good night. See you next week. Жақсы тұрыңыздар.
Жақсы қалыңыздар.
Bye.